Hello, I'm Scott Soshnick.
And I'm Eben Novy-Williams, and this is the Scott's on His Worst Behavior sports business podcast, the Sporticast.
Yes, I'm tired today, Eben Novy-Williams. I'm very tired. Somebody was standing for 2+ hours at a Drake concert. I will say last night. We are taping on Monday. Sunday at Madison Square Garden. Not the Knicks, not the Rangers, not the circus, not a fight. What else would be? Not WWE.
Ticket, not Taylor Swift.
Not Taylor Swift. No. Just me, 18,000 friends, and man, nobody wanted to sit down. Ever heard of 21 Savage, by the way?
I have heard of 21
Oh, you have? Okay, I had not heard of 21 Savage. Let's just say
you were the only person there that had not heard of
No, I don't think that's true because there were quite a few chaperones at the show, if you know what I'm talking about, including a certain investment banker from Inner Circle Sports who was a few rows behind me with his daughter. So if we had an award for most embarrassed kid, it could have been his daughter or my son. Like my son literally said these words to me: "Why don't you go walk the concourse until it's over?"
Wow.
Yes, did not like having the old man next to him.
Jackson's on his worst behavior.
No, I totally get it, by the way. I totally get it. But I will tell you this.
I don't think you've said the name, by the way. Whose concert were you at?
Oh, I didn't say Drake? Didn't I say Drake?
No,
Oh,
I think
all right.
you said 21 Savage, but not Drake.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so at the Drake show, very good. But you know me, I look at everything in the lens of sports business, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out sort of what are teams doing well, what are they doing differently, what can they learn from this show. First of all, the melding of sport and entertainment is Drake is coming down the stairway, and he's being like, you think he's just got these huge bodyguards with him, right? Well, he did have two huge guys with him as well as bodyguards, but one was Giancarlo Stanton and one was Aaron Judge. So I was like, right off the bat, know your audience, right? He's in Madison Square Garden. Here come the Yankees.
I can hear Yankee fans groaning at this, by the way. I don't know if you know, but Drake is like the Madden curse of celebrity sports fans.
Yeah, I know. I know he bounces around. He wants the Kentucky Wildcats when they're good.
Exactly.
Raptors when they
win.
win.
Very bad right after he gets on the bandwagon.
I don't think anybody rooting for the Yankees these days would be considered a bandwagon fan. It's not like they're running away with the decision. My son with the joke of the night Dad, no truth to it that Stanton pulled his hamstring on the way down. So thank you for the 14-year-old. Thank you, Jackson, for the joke. But this was the real sports business lesson that I'm watching. You know how each arena they have like one or two things that make it feel like, all right, this is special to our arena. This is something we do. Like in the national anthem, when they say night in Vegas, everybody screams night. All right, that tells me I'm part of this community. I know what's up. I know what's coming. If you're not, you're like, it takes you by surprise. Oh, wait, what was that? Why did everybody just scream night? I don't think teams do enough of that. And Drake, to his credit, he's working the stage, and he stopped singing and he's putting the microphone out. He wants to gauge sort of who knows his old stuff. Like, are you new Drake fans with the recent popularity, or do you go back with me, to when nobody knew who Drake was? And he was reveling in the fact that there were a lot of people who knew there's old stuff, and then there's, wow, I didn't know you knew this old stuff. That kind of. And are there things that teams could do, whether it's during timeouts or whether it's in between or halftime, between periods, that would be solely to that team, make you feel like you are on the inside, you were there when it was created, you are part of the community. Because right now, there's T-shirt, guns, cannons, which is fun. What do we love the most? The thing on the scoreboard where the coin moves around, and which one is it under? The shell game. We love that. But that's anywhere, everywhere. What more can they do to make it feel like this is special? The provenance is Inter Miami now with Messi, or the Yankees, or the Dallas Cowboys. Real things that are specific to that team, that time of year. No, I don't want to go to the concession counter right now, because this is where we all stand up and or Minnesota has the slow clap, the Vikings. Yeah, I kind of like that. That's a little what I'm talking about here. How do we get that throughout a game?
I think one of the one of the areas of our industry that does this really well is college football specifically, and college basketball to a degree too, right? If you watch the Cameron Crazies, there are specific moments in Duke basketball games where certain songs get played, certain dances come.
Yes.
Wisconsin football at the start of the fourth quarter when everyone does the jump around and the whole stadium is bouncing.
Northwestern, they throw marshmallows in the fourth, I believe.
Oh, is that right?
Okay.
Yeah. So I think a lot of colleges have figured out this like idea of kind of tradition.
How are the colleges ahead of the pros?
Things.
Don't we have the smartest minds in the professional ranks? What's going on here?
Yeah. I don't think you and I would disagree that I think the live product is better in a lot of college football and college basketball venues than it is at a lot of pro venues. I think a lot of that is because students bring an energy to a game that pro sports don't have, and
MLS has the idea. MLS has the supporters section.
That was the other thing I was going to say.
Why doesn't everybody have the supporter section?
The fact that and MLS teams do this, and obviously European teams do too. There's a series of team-specific chants.
Yes.
There's very much a club. Do you know the chants?
Yes.
Do you know when they come on? There's very little of that. The Rangers, the Potvin sucks whistle. That's something that I think
that's a
you
good
hear
one.
The whistle in the arena, and you can tell immediately who knows what's coming next and who doesn't when they hear the whistle. I agree. I think there should definitely be more of that because it does build a sense of community.
And let's not, after decades and decades, let's not lose sight of the fact that Denny Potvin, number 5 for the New York Islanders, led the power play. Thank you very much. 4 straight Stanley Cups. You can tell I was an Islander fan. That he actually cashed in on it finally. He's selling socks. Potvin socks. Yeah, go Google Potvin socks. Way to go, Dennis.
Smart.
One N in Dennis, by the way. One N in Dennis. See, little things like that, the real fans know. If somebody writes Dennis Potvin, Dennis, you're not a fan. Right? And now you can get Potvin socks. I love it. I love it.
So when Drake comes back to New York in 2 years, Scott, are you rushing to get tickets, or is one show enough?
Only if it's God's plan.
Nice.
I knew you'd impress. I knew you'd be impressed.
Bad.
You know what else I'm impressed with? The offer to Kylian Mbappé. Yeah, go ahead. You give me those numbers. That was a. By the way, Drake does that in between. So he does like. I don't like it.
Oh, that's his ad lib now?
That's his thing. Yeah, I don't like it. But just for that is my. I'm just saying right there. I'm lying in the sand. I don't like it. I don't know what it is.
Aubrey, if you're listening.
Yeah. By the way, that may be something that I'm talking about where it goes way back and there's a reason for it. And I'm out of the clue. But as somebody who doesn't know what it is and what I don't like it. Go ahead, Mbappé. Go ahead.
Fair. Yeah, Kylian Mbappé, the 24-year-old French soccer star. Some people I think would argue maybe the most talented soccer player on the planet right now. Was the latest to get one of these massive inflated offers from the Saudi Arabian league. Scott, a $330 million, that's U.S. dollar, transfer fee offer to Paris Saint-Germain.
Let's make clear, that's not his salary.
That's not the salary. That's
is
just
to
free him up.
The transfer fee to PSG.
And then $775 million reported salary offer. So put those two things together, that this Saudi Arabian league is preparing a $1.1 billion package to get one of the best, if not the best player in the world to Saudi Arabia. We've talked on this show, the Saudi Arabian League and PIF, the Saudi Arabian Sovereign Wealth Fund, are working in concert, offering massive chunks of money to stars of all types. Ronaldo went over there. He's on the older aging superstar level. Karim Benzema in there, and then there's some younger stars like Firmino and Ruben Neves who went over that are on the younger side. Mbappe would be a whole different league here, and it's obviously why they're offering a whole different league of money. But a $1 billion package here would be the highest paid athlete by a very large sum instantaneously if he does accept this and if the numbers are real. But it just shows how quickly and how dramatically Saudi Arabia is moving into buying the best soccer talent in the world.
I like the way you say moving into. It's more like, like it's bulldozing the home next door. You're not moving into their store.
That's fair.
This is an aggressive eminent domain pursuit. We're seizing this and that, and we're going to build a shiny new soccer team here. I mean, by the way, China tried this. Like, this was the Chinese approach for a while, and that didn't go anywhere, and it was, since abandoned.
It was a disaster.
Right.
Part of that, I think China tried this nowhere near the scale that we're seeing right now, right? There were a few, and Falcao may have been the biggest one. There were a few players that went over to China. Samuel Eto'o did this in Russia 5 years before China did the whole thing. Both the Russian and the Chinese kind of purchasing waves ended up very, very badly, but nothing on the scale of what we're seeing right now with Saudi Arabia. And we have Ronaldo, who played last year at Al Ahly, saying that this is one of the best soccer leagues in the world, or is about to be, and he'll never go back and play in Europe. I do think this is the most comprehensive look that we've seen. I mean, it really is, and it was Saudi backed as well, but it's very similar in some ways to Live Golf. Just offering massive sums of money to some of the most talented people in the world at a specific sport, and if the money is big enough, you're gonna get guys that are willing to go over. And the list right now, it's 20 plus, I think, of European soccer players that have signed in the past year with clubs in Saudi Arabia, and it's going to be a lot more. I'm kind of fascinated to see, one, how what happens on the field there, and two, how soccer fans who love these guys, right, who love Ronaldo, who love Mbappe, how they react to this new normal as well.
Let me ask you this. If I'm asking you to come up with a gauge in terms of how a brand is firmly cemented in the mind share of this brand around the world to its most fervent fans. EPL versus PGA.
Yeah.
Which brand was more cemented? And I say was because obviously the Live Golf made a real dent in PGA. But before that, if I had said to you, which brand is more vulnerable, let's use corporate raider Gordon Gekko terminology here, to a hostile takeover. No poison pills in these deals. Which brand is more vulnerable to a hostile takeover? PGA or the EPL? Which one would you have said?
I would have said PGA, and I would have said it because it seemed very clear that there was a tension between the athletes and the PGA. The golfers,
yeah, they wanted more
PGA,
money. You knew right there.
We
wanted more money. We want more money.
And,
right.
And EPL, I don't get the sense that EPL, there's no real salary cap, right? You can pay EPL players essentially whatever you want. So it didn't feel like there was a mass movement by the biggest stars in EPL who felt like they were undercompensated by the work that they were doing in soccer. It did feel like in the PGA, and for a while, there was a growing kind of frustration between the top tier golfers, some of those same ones that ended up playing in Live when they had the opportunity. But there was a tension there about how much money the PGA distributed that is not there in European soccer.
All right, I'm going to tell you why this has a chance.
That would be my argument.
I'm going to tell you why I think this has a chance. So we're driving home from Drake last night. By the way, the normal route to the Lincoln Tunnel was closed. It was like one guy running this small little machine.
Oh.
Ridiculous. An hour plus to get back to 9th Avenue and loop into the tunnel. But I digress. In the back seat, tired focus group of one and his pal. So they somehow, I don't know how we got on the topic of soccer, whatever. But this is what would scare me if I was the EPL, if I was Serie A, if I was League One, if I was Bundesliga, if I'm MLS. This is what scares me. My focus group of one and his pal are league and team agnostic.
Yeah.
They do not care one iota. They don't care if it says Standard Charter on the shirt, if it says Etihad, if it says Qatar Airways. They don't care. They are not loyal to the teams. All they are talking about, the only brands that matter to them are the individual players. Their loyalty is to the player. It is to what the player says, what the player does, what the player broadcasts, what the player sponsors. That's what they are. And I'm guessing, yes, a very small sample size, I'm guessing they are quite indicative of the new fan of soccer. These kids are just amazed at what each of the individual players can do.
But are they watching games at all? Like, regardless of where Mbappe plays, are they watching?
They're watching highlights. They're following Mbappe. Are they sitting down and watching an entire PSG game? No.
They're using him in the video game.
They want to play as Mbappe.
Yeah.
And if you were part of the NBA Technology Summit, you understand that Adam Silver and the brains at the NBA get that this is a very significant change. Like, I'm not a fan of the Knicks. I'm not a fan of the Utah Jazz. I'm a fan of player X, player Y, and they move around. So the technology that they showed at the summit was the ability to sort of put your face on that player's body. So you then become that player in the video game. The affiliation is me and that guy, me and that woman. You know, I want to play as Sue Bird. I want to play as Kevin Durant, not the team at all. And hey, as we've talked about a million times, Eben, the end game, the win, is figuring out how to separate my child from money.
Yeah.
How do I, whether it's my card that's stored on the Xbox, or whether he says, Dad, can you buy me this? Or he's a little bit older, I've got my money from this or that, and I'm going to go spend it on whatever. How do you separate these kids from money? And I think going after the individual players is how you do it with them.
We have talked many times. You ask this question, I think, a lot when we talk about college sports, is if you could take essentially all the athletes that are playing in a Michigan versus Ohio State game, put them on a different field in different uniforms, or then replace them with athletes in the Notre Dame or the Michigan and Ohio State uniforms, but not be athletes that anybody knows.
Yep.
And which of those two things gets watched more? Is it the better athletes in the nondescript uniforms, or is it the no-name athletes in the uniforms of the colleges? And I think you and I agree that the colleges are the brand.
The college are the brand that matter. Yep.
So we may be seeing the exact
opposite.
We'll see. Yeah. We may be seeing the opposite in European soccer, where people are going to follow the stars and not necessarily the brands. I to be very clear, I'm not worried about the EPL in any capacity, at least in any time.
Listen, if I'm born in Liverpool
soon,
and I go to the game with my father and my grandfather and my grandmother and my aunt, you know, we go as a family, and this is brought down, and all you remember is growing up, and you'll never walk alone, and you're watching, and and everybody wears the jerseys, and everybody tells tales about the good old days. I get it. That's an important brand in your life, but you're still gonna. But the young kids say. I'm saying the young kids, even that Liverpool fan is susceptible to the megastar player if he leaves Liverpool, wanting to go follow that player and see what he does elsewhere.
And even if you take a team like Liverpool, what percentage of their global fans are in Liverpool? 10%, maybe
teeny
less?
Teeny
yeah,
tiny.
They have fans in Indonesia, and they have fans in Brazil, and they have fans in India, and those are the fans that
As David Stern,
don't have the geographical.
Hey, I'm getting a David Stern reference in. I didn't plan on it, but here it is. As David Stern liked to remind everybody, most basketball fans live nowhere near an NBA arena and will never set foot in one of those buildings. How do you reach those folks who are fans of the game and will never touch the product in person?
Exactly. And that, I think, is where this question gets hit most acutely, is are those people just kind of in the wind depending on who's playing for what team, or are they building the kind of strong affinities that was commonplace in sports fandom 50, 60 years ago?
Did you have a little breathing there? A little something down the wrong pipe? What happened? I sensed
swallow?
something, a little weird swallow. A little
swallow.
Yeah. What's the flap called? What's the iplong or the something long? No, what is that called? Come on.
I know what you're talking about. I have no idea what it's called.
I do, and it's now. I'm funny enough, I'm going to say it's on the tip of my tongue. I mean, it's not. It's a little, but I know it's not really. But I can't think of exactly. This is really going to bother me. What it is. Anyway, so I know we're a little late, but we had discussed it the day before, the day of, when Lionel Messi was going to play his first game. And I mean, did I text you when he scored? Did you? Oh, you texted me.
I texted you.
You texted me. Yeah. Like, oh, come on.
Curse word, I think.
Oh, come on.
Truly stunning. I turned the game on pretty late, and sometimes you can't write that. I feel like it's an overly used term, but the fact that ended in the 94th minute in that way, in like the most stereotypical Leo Messi.
Well, why would that guy make that foul 22-3 yards from goal? What was that? Back to the goal, and he takes him out. What are you doing? I mean, that's why I told
Don
you
Garber occupied the defender's body for a second to bring him down.
Like, come on. What are you, an idiot? What are you doing? Play the left foot. Don't let him turn. Stop it. Anyway.
What an incredible this is. I mean, you couldn't write it.
No,
it's exactly what Apple wants. It's exactly what MLS
if that
wants.
game
it's exactly
finishes,
what Liga MX wants.
If that game finishes in a tie, everybody's like, big yawn. Soccer's boring.
He came on when they were winning.
Yeah, exactly. They scored when he was there.
Yeah.
They need more goals. But before that, before Messi became the global story with that free kick, I was saying, I can't believe he didn't play the first half, because then when he did come on, he was going head-to-head with the Women's World Cup game, which didn't have to happen if he played early. I understand you wanting to build the drama and bring him in the second half. I get it, but man, that's tough to – because how many people, like 7-8 million, right, watch the Women's World Cup game?
A lot,
There's one thing you know about the people watching the Women's World Cup game. They're soccer fans. They probably had at least one ear or eye on the Messi story, but unless they're watching two things, unless they're Vasu Kulkarni, our friend over at Courtside Ventures, and his 38 TVs in his living room, I picture in picture, I get it, but I don't know. I kind of want to focus on if I have to make a choice, you're forcing them into that situation, and you're just costing yourself eyeballs.
It does make you wonder if you know that you want him to play 30 minutes, which seemed like roughly the number they wanted. You could start him, and you could put someone else on in the 30th minute as opposed to waiting to the 60th minute to bring him on. But again, in retrospect, I think the whole conversation becomes moot by the fact that he had a walk-off free kick goal.
They did it perfectly. I'm wrong. Let me say, I was completely wrong.
They would have wanted it.
Yep, I was an idiot. The completely right way. Make sure he's on the field at the end. That's when the dramatic moments happen. That's what he's getting paid to do. Nobody cares if he scores in the 39th minute. And then they shut it off.
While we're talking about Messi, I want to call attention to a really good story that our colleagues Eric Jackson and Asla Pellet did at Sportico last week which is getting talked about a lot inside MLS, not enough in my opinion in the fan world of MLS. But Messi, like a lot of European soccer players, has not played a lot on turf in his career. And a lot of the big European players who come to MLS don't play on turf. When their team goes to one of the stadiums that has a turf field, they load management, they're getting a day off, all of that. And there are 6 MLS venues that have turf fields. Inter Miami plays on the road at a few of them later this year, one of them being Atlanta United. And Commissioner Don Garber said earlier this week or last week that he expected a lot of the teams that have turf fields, if Messi comes to town, to put in grass fields to ensure that Messi plays. And Atlanta United executives told our colleagues that that's not in the cards.
But let's just say this, by the way. Knee-jerk reaction, and you're thinking, wow, what a boon to the bottom line when Messi comes to town because, MLS, you're not selling out this is really, you're going to sell the most tickets you have all year. What you need to know is the reality of Atlanta United.
The ticket sales are
they
not
do
a problem
just fine.
in
Yeah,
Atlanta.
they do just fine.
The game is sold out. There's a good chance it might have been sold out even without Messi.
Do you remember when Arthur Blank told us years ago that the ambiance at the soccer games was better than the ambiance at the Atlanta Falcons games? You and I both looked at each other and said, did he just say that?
Yeah, I think that is exactly the conversation we had at the start of this show, Scott, about some of the ways in which the fan community building in MLS is a little bit different than in other leagues. So Atlanta United, also two other things we should mention on this. I think the game is in September. That means the Falcons are also playing in and around that time. So paying whatever it is, $750,000 to put in a turf field that you then need to take off and make sure it doesn't interfere with the moneymaker tenant in that building, which is still the Falcons, I think is a big piece of that equation. It's the same thing as Charlotte, which also has a turf field. It is also a field shared by the MLS and the NFL team, the Panthers.
Can't they get a sponsor for this? This game, the grass of this game, brought to you by Scott's Turf Builder.
It's a great point, and I do think that Atlanta may be a little different, as we said, because of ticket sales. But there are people in Charlotte, 100%, that rush to buy Inter Miami, the road games in Charlotte, the minute Messi signed, because they were like, his team's going to be here. And if Messi doesn't play on turf and the team doesn't put in turf, I think there's a lot of people that are going to buy tickets to that game and be like, oh, wait, what?
But what do you mean Messi's not playing?
And he's not playing?
It's like one of these NBA directors where he has to sit on the sideline in a collared shirt and wave.
Yeah, and I was going to say, for NBA fans, this is the thing, right? A lot of people buy, games to see LeBron James when he's in town, and then suddenly their load management, they're getting a structured day off, and they don't see them. So I'm really curious to see what happens at the end there. The one other thing on this is there's a competitive advantage for your opponent by putting in this turf field. You are making, by putting Messi on the field, you're making the team you're playing against significantly better by paying all this money to put in a turf field at your stadium. So there's also
put in a grass field.
Put in a grass field. Sorry, right. Yeah. So there's also a competitive, in addition to.
Yeah, I don't want Messi playing. I mean, if I'm in a playoff fight, I don't want Messi on the field.
I could do something to make my opponent significantly worse by no cost to me. Like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So I think there's also an interesting layer here of strategy from a standings and a win-loss perspective where, sure, your fans, a lot of people who are there want to see Messi, but by paying money to get a grass field put in so that Messi can play, you're also making your opponent significantly better as well.
Push comes to shove. Inter Miami at Atlanta, whatever the date is. There's grass on the field or there's turf on the field. Push comes to shove. Push comes to shove. Make the pick.
There's turf. I'm going to say turf.
I'm going the other way. I'm saying good of the league. Good of the league. Okay. There's some sort of shared cost.
Cooler heads prevail.
Yeah, cooler heads prevail, and there's actual grass. Do we do a Soshnick value add here, whatever the harpsichord music is?
Let's do it. Yeah.
I told you this already privately, but a lot of people don't know this, that there was also a turf issue when Pelé came to play for the New York Cosmos. The first game he played in was at Randall's Island, which should not surprise people. Isn't exactly a wonderful field.
Is that Icon Stadium or what is now Icon Stadium?
Yeah, what is now Icon Stadium. A lot of track and field goes on there.
Yeah.
But, probably not turf, not grass. I would say on its best day, probably back in the 70s, patches of dirt with the bumps of grass that you put, you've had a free kick, you put it on a high patch of, for a nice in-step drive. So anyway, the people involved here, the NASL and the Cosmos, knew there's only one thing that mattered here was the global audience. It wasn't the people in the stadium. So they took green spray paint and they painted the entire, including the dirt. They just painted everything green so that on TV it would look like a lovely soccer field. Well, halftime, Pelé goes in to the locker room, takes off his boots, if you will, the socks. His feet are green. Everything's green. And he freaks out thinking there's some, whatever. He's like, I'm not going back out there. No way am I going back out there. Of course, cooler heads prevail. They explained, no, they just painted it because, there's no fungus growing on, on the field here. It's just paint because we needed it to look good, and he went back out and played.
That's a great story.
Great story.
I have
Sports
not
marketing back in the days. It's just a matter. I like the fact that they understand the in-arena audience, meaningless. It was about the
even back then
millions and millions of people beamed around the globe who wanted to see Pelé play his first game in the North American Soccer League.
There you go. Yeah, and this is something that I'm sure we'll be talking about this more, Scott. Again, there's a number of games that they play on road games on turf, and if Miami can make the playoffs, who knows? They may play up in Cincinnati, which is I think the best team in the Eastern Conference, and I believe they play on turf as well. I think in the playoffs this becomes a much more intense conversation at the league level and at the team level.
Absolutely. Lionel, we're going to need you for 30 minutes on the turf, all right? If the game is tied or we're down by one, we need you for 30 minutes or whatever. But I'll make it the last 30. I mean, I've learned my lesson. I won't complain about that anymore. You said there's a whole bunch of stuff you maybe wanted to talk about. I'm going to let you. Commanders deal closing, Mary Jo White report you still wanted to talk. You want to talk about Michael Jordan closing his sale. What do you want to do?
Let's hold off on Michael Jordan. But
all right, we're holding off on Jordan, so we're going to go back to Dan
Commanders.
Snyder.
Yeah, the timing here didn't surprise me, but I do want to talk about it a little bit.
Oh, God, so staged.
Friday, on Thursday, NFL owners vote to approve the Commanders sale, $6.05 billion.
Unanimous. Adios, Dan. Talk about a kick in the butt.
Unanimous. Yep. The NFL sends that announcement out. Vote has happened. Deal is approved. Can now close. And literally 7 minutes later, the NFL releases a 23-page report. Mary Jo White's findings from her many, many month-long investigation into the Washington Commanders affirms some details that we had heard, accusations that were made about the team under Dan Snyder and also Dan himself. Obviously, a very coordinated 1-2 punch here, Scott. Some big sale news, and then the news. I'm curious what you think about the thinking behind the doing these things right after each other. If there is some trying to bury news number 2 in face of news number 1, kind of what you think about what the NFL was trying to do with a very, very coordinated release of these two things together.
I thought it would have come Saturday, sort of a weekend. It gets a little bit. I know there's the Friday news done,
but the report, the Mary Jo White details.
Yeah, I thought the Mary Jo White details would have come Saturday, but right afterwards on there's so much jubilation in D.C. Elsewhere, like we don't care, but the news that it's the deal's done, right? And then sort of your findings were anticlimactic. It was sort of like, well, this is what we already knew. So the sale of the team, and by the way, the press conference, and when you've got Magic Johnson dancing and you've got Josh Harris buying beers, that's going to be your news of the day. You had good video of it, right? The report is just words, right? But when I got video of Magic dancing and Magic almost crying because of the moment, and did you see Josh introducing his mother?
I didn't see
She's
that,
sitting in
no.
the front, and I think she stood up. She said, "I want to be known as Mama Commander." Which she doesn't know they may change the name, but that's for another day. Yeah.
Mama Red Hawk.
Joshua? I didn't know why didn't you tell me we were changing the name?
Before I got this back tattoo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, big wings and Mama Commander tattoo. We could do this if we were in the office right now, we would do this for a while. But so I'm not surprised. It's done. It's done. All right, let me see. What do we know about Dan Snyder? He sexually harassed. At least they found that he sexually harassed an employee. Oh, and by the way, he also hid some money from his partners.
And refused to cooperate with the investigation.
Moving forward, I'm sitting here like, there's a $60 million fine. Now I know why there was a 0.05 attached to the 6.05 billion, right? Oh, that's why.
6.06 would have been
I thought
6.06
would have been too obvious, right? Now I see why. So 60 mil, got it. My question, they didn't say where the money's going. I mean, if I'm the new executive director of the NFLPA, it was my players who got gypped out of that money, right?
Yeah.
Is there a clawback provision where that money goes to the unions? You know what? I see Roger Goodell say, here's $60 million. We're done. You guys figure it out. You can, however you want to distribute this to your members, fine by me. We just want to be done, and we're moving forward with the new ownership group.
Part of my read on this also is there are, as you mentioned there's some really damning things in this report about Dan Snyder. A lot of them are things we had heard before. I don't think anyone who's followed Dan's career closely read any of that stuff and was really surprised. But I also think of this as a one last kind of gift to Dan Snyder on the way out by the NFL. They kind of hid the report under bigger news of him leaving. I believe that there are way worse things that may have popped up that could maybe have been included in the summary of the report. It just felt like a very tidy end as Dan walks away with a very big check to leave the NFL in his past. It just felt like this was the league doing him maybe one last favor of making it a soft landing. And
I don't think. No. They didn't. No. I don't want to term it that. They did not do him a favor. No. They did themselves a favor by him signing off on the deal. If it meant this is how we had to downplay, they did no one favor but themselves. Because what are the 3 syllables? This is a tough one. I never did this for you like this way. What are the 3 syllables Roger Goodell and the owners fear, disdain, hate loathe more than anything else? There are 3 syllables.
Disclosure?
Those are the 3 syllables. Thank you, Novy-Williams.
What does he mean, Johnny?
I had you at less than 50% because he might know it. That's why I talked a little bit more, but I thought maybe you get disclosure. Like you have to do it in like the old days when you're in like how many times does my chin go down? Disclosure. 3 syllables. Those are them. That's the end game from the very start was we must avoid disclosure. Not only because of Dan said, or we heard in the ESPN story way back when, Dan's like, I got dirt on a lot of people.
Yeah.
We have said for years, how many owners, forget NFL, I'm talking in general, how many owners could withstand the scrutiny of a real independent investigation into their behavior, into the behavior in the locker rooms, the boardrooms, the offices? How many could withstand that? I'm putting it less than 50-50 that they could withstand it.
And to that point about disclosure, I do know that there were some people in the NFL that were concerned about what Dan was going to do litigious-wise when he left, depending on the process by which it happened, right? And in the end, Dan got to do this largely on his own terms. He got to run a sale process. He got to pick the highest bidder, whatever it is. It does feel like, and I think we can criticize this if we want to, but the NFL has bent over backwards for Dan Snyder for decades, really, in a way that it probably should not have. But the way the whole ending played out also felt like it was one last, we're not going to have any legal problems here. We're going to sign this. He's going to pay this. And we're both going to wash our hands and hopefully move forward from it.
It's a private club. They can do whatever they want. They just don't want problems from within. All right, so I'm going to let you close it out again.
All right. Well, we will be talking more later this week. We've got a guest, private equity guest coming up on Wednesday. Until then, he is Scott Soshnick on Twitter.
Wait, you don't wait, whoa. You don't say the guest?
I was going to leave it as a teaser.
Really?
Michael Spirito, partner at
I
Sapphire
was going to say, all right, I'm not sure. In the spirit of cooperation, that's what I was going to say. In the spirit of cooperation, I won't do it either. But then you went and spilled the beans. Sapphire Ventures, Michael Spirito.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, looking forward to that conversation. Until then, he is Scott Soshnick on Twitter at Soshnick. I am Eben Novy-Williams on Twitter at Novy_Williams. The show is produced by Keith Zanardi and Aaron Greenewald. Thank you to both of them. Sportico's digital media editor, Cora Veltman, would like you to know that you can follow this show at Sporticast, the hub of the Sportico Media Network.